Hey, did you know that the sweet treat on your plate right now could be a silent assassin for your blood sugar? I'm not talking about some obscure poison. I mean those everyday desserts, sodas, and sauces you barely think twice about. Let's dive straight into the deadliest foods and hidden traps for diabetics. Because one wrong bite could be spiking your levels into the danger zone. Now, let's pull back the curtain a bit. What if I told you that the real battle starts long before a diabetes diagnosis hits? I'm talking about insulin resistance, the sneaky precursor that's already wreaking havoc while you're none the wiser. Picture this. You're dragging through the afternoon, feeling that slump after lunch, craving sugar like it's your lifeline. That's not just a bad day. That's your body screaming it can't handle glucose properly. Or maybe you've noticed darker patches of skin behind your neck or under your arms, a condition called acanthosis nigricans. I've seen folks brush this off as a cosmetic quirk, only to find out it's a glaring red flag. Hunger pangs that won't quit, weight creeping up around your belly despite no change in habits. These aren't random. They're signs your cells are starving for energy, even as sugar piles up in your blood. And here's the kicker. By the time you're peeing constantly or dropping weight from full-blown diabetes, you've already lost up to 80% of your pancreas function. That's not early, that's a crisis. So, how do we catch this early and fight back? Let's unpack the battlefield, from what's on your fork to the stress in your head. First, let's ground ourselves in the basics of this fight. Diabetes, at its core, is about your body's struggle to manage blood sugar, and insulin resistance is the opening act. It's when your cells stop responding to insulin, the hormone that's supposed to shuttle glucose into them for energy. The result? Sugar builds up in your bloodstream, and your body goes haywire trying to cope. I've sat with countless folks who didn't realize their constant fatigue after meals wasn't just getting older. One patient I remember vividly came in complaining about always feeling wiped out by 2 p.m. He was a truck driver, used to long hauls, but suddenly couldn't keep his eyes open after a sandwich and chips. We dug deeper. His cravings for sugary snacks were through the roof, and he'd packed on 15 pounds around his middle in under a year. That's classic insulin resistance, and it's more common than you'd think. Studies show up to 40% of adults in the US have some degree of it, often without a clue. Then there's the physical toll. Those darkened skin patches I mentioned earlier aren't just skin deep. They're a sign of excess insulin trying to force glucose into cells, often showing up in creases like the neck or armpits. I've seen it in teens as young as 15. A heartbreaking hint at what's brewing inside. And let's not forget the downstream effects. If unchecked, this rolls into type 2 diabetes, where your pancreas just can't keep up anymore. So, what's the game plan? It starts with vigilance. Knowing these signs means you can act before it's too late. But it's not just about spotting trouble. It's about dodging the landmines in your daily routine. Think about your meals. How do you stop those post-meal spikes that make your sugar soar? Start with simple hacks. Eat a salad or soup before the heavy stuff. Fiber slows down glucose absorption, acting like a buffer. I've watched people cut their spikes by 20% just by flipping their meal order. Then, take a 10-minute walk before and after eating. It's not about burning calories. It's about jump-starting your muscles to suck up glucose faster. Research backs this, but 2016 study in diabetes care found even light walking post-meal can drop blood sugar by up to 30 points in some folks. And don't underestimate stress. It's a silent saboteur. When you're frazzled, your body pumps out cortisol and adrenaline, hormones that act like steroids, doubling your blood sugar spikes with a meal. I recall a single mom who came to me, her numbers off the charts, despite a decent diet. Turns out, juggling 2 jobs and 3 kids had her cortisol through the roof. She was stress-eating comfort carbs night. We worked on small stress busters, like 5-minute breathing breaks, and her levels started stabilizing. The point is, managing this isn't just about food. It's a whole lifestyle chess game, from what you eat to how you breathe. But hold on, have you ever wondered why some days your numbers are wild, even when you've played by the rules? Let's dig into a curveball. The foods you think are harmless might be your biggest enemies. Take commercial sauces. Those little packets or bottles you drizzle on everything. They're often loaded with hidden sugars, spiking your glucose faster than a candy bar. I had a guy in his 50s, loved his barbecue ribs, swore he was cutting back on sweets, but his store-bought sauce had more sugar per tablespoon than a soda. We swapped it for a homemade mix of vinegar and spices, and his post-meal readings dropped 40 points in a week. That's the kind of sneaky trap I'm talking about. And it's not just sauces. Think about fruit juices, marketed as healthy. A single glass can pack 30 grams of sugar with 0 fiber to slow the hit. I've seen folks down a 12-ounce serving, thinking it's better than soda, only to see their blood sugar jump to 200 within an hour. Compare that to eating a whole orange, where the fiber keeps things steady. Then there's regular rice and pasta, carbs that turn to glucose so fast, they're like rocket fuel for your bloodstream. A 2018 study from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed white rice can raise blood sugar twice as fast as whole grains in some individuals. The fix? Swap to quinoa or brown rice, or at least pair it with fiber-heavy veggies. And don't get me started on commercial desserts. Those bakery items at the grocery store are sugar bombs waiting to detonate. I'm not saying never indulge, but one slice of that triple-layer cake can undo a week of discipline. The data's clear. A single high-sugar meal can elevate blood sugar for up to 12 hours in sensitive folks, per research from the Journal of Diabetes Research. So when I say avoid these, I mean it. Your body isn't playing games with this stuff. Now let's hit the heart of this war. Those deadliest foods and traps aren't just annoyances. They're life-altering if you don't act. Let's zero in on the absolute worst offenders and why they're non-negotiable to ditch. Start with sodas, liquid sugar with no redeeming value. A 12-ounce can has about 39 grams of sugar, hitting your system like a tsunami. I've tracked patients whose daily soda habit kept their A1C a measure of average blood sugar over 3 months, stuck above 8, even with meds. One woman cut it out cold turkey, switched to water with a splash of lemon, and her A1C dropped to 6.5 in just 3 months. That's not magic. It's math. Eliminate the spike, stabilize the system. Then there's the financial sting of mismanagement. I've heard stories that'll make your jaw drop. Like a pre-diabetic patient whose medication bill jumped from $40 to $400 a month overnight. Why? Sometimes it's a shift to a pricier drug. Sometimes insurance quirks. But the real question is, why shell out that cash when lifestyle shifts could cut your need for meds entirely? Spend that money on fresh groceries instead. Buy leafy greens, lean proteins. I worked with a retiree on a fixed income who redirected his budget from pills to a farmer's market haul. 6 months later, his numbers were down, and he wasn't rationing meds anymore. Exercise is another linchpin. 150 minutes a week of moderate effort, where you're breathing hard but can still talk in short bursts. Think brisk walking or cycling, or, if you've got the grit, 90 minutes of intense stuff. Jogging, where you're gasping too much to chat. A 2020 meta-analysis in the Lancet Diabetes and Endocrinology showed regular exercise can lower A1C by up to 0.7%, rivaling some medications. But it's got to be consistent. Chasing your dog for 5 minutes doesn't count. Your heart rate needs to hit 110 to 120 and stay there for 15 to 30 minutes per session. I've seen a guy in his 60s start with just walking his block. Heart rate barely up, thinking he was done. We got him on a plan, 30 minutes every other day, and his stamina and sugar control transformed in 2 months. Monitoring is just as critical. If you've got a continuous glucose monitor, check it often. Fasting, 2 hours after meals, before bed. No device? Finger sticks at those times work too. And get your A1C checked every 3 months. Target under 6 if you're younger and healthy. 7 to 8 if you're older or on heavy meds to avoid low sugar risks. I've had patients shocked to see a 50% A1C drop in just a month after lifestyle tweaks. Though full effects take 3. Then there's the high-low sugar confusion. Low blood sugar hits with sweating, anxiety, racing heart. High sugar shows as blurred vision, fatigue, constant urination. For sudden lows, stop everything and grab fast carbs. 4 ounces of juice, a few crackers. But don't trust your monitor blindly. They lag 30 minutes behind real-time blood changes. I've seen folks keep eating under a false low reading, only to skyrocket to 400 later. Details like these aren't just tips. They're your shield against a condition that thrives on ignorance. All right, let's take a breather with a little twist that might make you chuckle. Ever thought the forbidden cookie could save your life? Picture this. You're shaky, sweaty, heart pounding from a low blood sugar drop. Normally, I'd say steer clear of sweets, but right then, a cookie or 4 ounces of juice is your superhero. It's fast, it's effective. Blood sugar up in minutes. But here's the funny trap I've seen over and over. In a panic, folks don't stop at one. They raid the whole kitchen. Cookies, crackers, half a pizza, and next thing you know, they've swung from a low of 50 to a high of 300. It's like fixing a flat tire by blowing it up till it pops. And don't get fooled by those fancy glucose monitors either. They're accurate, sure, but delay. Your blood might climb from 50 to 80, but the device lags, tricking you into thinking you're still crashing. So you munch more, and bam, hours later, you're dealing with a rebound spike. I've watched a young dad do this after a workout, thinking he was still low, only to call me frantic when his readings hit the roof. The lesson: trust your symptoms first, measure second, and don't turn an emergency fix into a sugar binge. It's a quirky little irony in this journey. Sometimes the bad stuff is your best friend, but only if you play it smart. So next time you're reaching for that emergency snack, remember, a little goes a long way, and overdoing it just trades one mess for another. So, here we are at the end of this roller coaster. We've exposed the deadliest foods, sodas, desserts, sneaky sauces that can sabotage your blood sugar in a heartbeat. We've broken down the early warnings of insulin resistance, from fatigue to skin changes, and armed you with tools like meal timing, walks, stress hacks, and exercise to fight back. Monitoring, knowing your highs from lows, and dodging overcorrections are your daily armor. This isn't just about dodging a diagnosis. It's about reclaiming control, bite by bite, step by step. If you want to keep hearing these hard-hitting truths and real strategies, hit that like button and subscribe. Your support is the fuel that keeps me sharing. And hey, I've got a question for you. What's the sneakiest food or habit that ever threw your numbers off? Drop it in the comments. I'm dying to read your stories.